We're now on Daf Ayin Beis Omen Beis. If Yesh Bo Keves Yayin, if at the bottom of this funnel there's something that causes a retention to retain the wine, there's a residue of wine from the previous use, also then the wine that was poured through the funnel into the Jew's flask is prohibited because it mixed with the wine in the non-Jewish flask, and now it asses the second Jew's flask through this same funnel. Ha akeves yayin v'maika mitzvah. Now, this residue of wine, how did it become prohibited? In other words, the funnel is on the top and the yayin is on the bottom. Lav, the only possibility of understanding this is benitzok. It must be that since there's a continuous flow that connects the yayin nesech wine at the bottom with the wine that's being funneled in from the top, shmamino nitzok chibur, and this whole issue of whether nitzok is a chibur is an unanswered question. So the Gemara is going to always try to reject any sort of proof that nitzok is a chibur, because at the end of the day, we don't really know whether nitzok is a chibur. Now the Gemara quotes a brisa that interprets the Mishnah that we just learned. Tani Rabbi Chia, shepchasato tzlochiso. When the Jew poured the wine through the funnel into the idol worship's flask, he continued to pour the wine until the level in the flask rose, and finally it backed up into the funnel. So the wine in the funnel was not merely connected through nitzok, through this stream, but actually touched it directly. So the Gemara says, wait a minute, if this price is correct, then avalo pichasto solchiso mai, you're implying from this brisa, with regard to the Mishnah's ruling, that if the level of the idol's worship flask it backed up in the funnel, but if the wine level in the flask did not back up into the funnel, then the wine in the retainer would not become prohibited. Is tifshel to nitzok eno chibur. Let's come to the exact opposite conclusion, and that we don't want to do either. We always want to leave it as an open-ended question. So the Gemara rejects this. In the case where the wine level in the idol worship's flask was backed up into the funnel itself, then you understand why it's awesome. Why didn't the brisa mention nitzok? Because nitzok tiboy, not because he had any definite position and he was certain about the halach of nitzok, but he didn't want to get into questionable cases, so he left out nitzok. Toshma, we're going to try to prove that nitzok is considered a chibur from our Mishnah. Hama'ara mikliu kli, he pours wine. The Jew pours wine from one vessel into another vessel to the vessel of a goy. And the vessel of the goy has a residue of yayin nesech. Es shema ora mimenu muta. So the wine that's left in the top vessel from which the Jew is pouring Jewish wine is permitted. But hadebeni beni asur. If there's wine that is in the airspace between these two vessels, that itself makes it connected to the wine in the lower vessel, which we said the wine in the lower vessel is yayin esed. Shma mina nitzok chibur. Should we now derive from this Mishnah that nitzok is indeed a chibur? And the Gemara says no. Nitzok chibur. If you were to hold according to your interpretation of the Mishnah, that this nitzok is considered a chibur, is afil de gavei de mononami letzar. Why does the Mishnah say that any wine that's left over in the upper vessel is mutter? Well, if there's an unbroken continuous chain, and therefore we're going to hold that nitzok is a chibur, then even the wine in the original vessel should be also. More says holokashali the kavakativ kitufe. He's pouring the wine in short, small amounts, so there's never an uninterrupted stream. So therefore, there's no connection between the wine in the upper vessel and the wine in the lower vessel. So the Gemara says, "Mikol makom nitzok chibur." But what? Forget about the wine in the upper vessel because he was pouring it in short spurts. But the fact that the Mishnah says that the wine in the air between the two vessels is asur and it has the status of yain nesach, you have to prove from that a stream, a nitzok, is a connection. So the Gemara says, "Ulutaimech." If you're holding that, according to the Mishnah, nitzok is a chibur, ema seifa, what do we do at the end of the Mishnah, which states that the wine into which he poured is, in the vessel into which he poured, is prohibited, implying that only the wine that's inside, not the wine in the airspace, the wine that's in the airspace between the two vessels, shari, is mutter. So basically, again, we have diyukim sosrim. We come to two different conclusions, basically, as to whether or not we analyze the ratio. The sefer, therefore, ella mehol lekel mishmanu. We cannot draw any conclusions. Toshma. What about from this price? Ma'ara mechavis lebar. I guess a bar is full of yayin nesech, and now he's pouring from his barrel into this cistern. Is the Brisa says kiluach hayoyim misfas chavis lamata asur. The flow that descends from the edge of the barrel downward. So it means some of the flow is still in midair, is prohibited. So apparently, nitzok is a chibur. So Gemara rejects this as well. Tigmar of sheishes bi ovikochom ma'ara. It's not a guy who's pouring, it's not a Jew who's pouring the wine, but rather it's an idol worship who's pouring the wine. The osimi kocho. So now we get back to the concept that we studied back, I think it was on Daf Lamed maybe. Let's just see if he quotes it here. He says here, the Brisa is not referring to a Jew who pours the wine from a barrel into a cistern. For then the portion of the flow that's still in midair would be permitted, for a stream does not constitute connection. That's the Gemara is trying to maintain now. Rather, the Brisa refers to where an idol worship is pouring kosher wine from a barrel into a cistern. The cistern might be empty, might have kosher wine in it. The reason why the wine poured out of the barrel is prohibited is that wine propelled, this is called kocho, by an idol worship's force is prohibited. And that's a Gemara back. Did I say Lamed? I meant to say Samach. On Daf Samach. All right, there's a whole machlokas with Tosubano or only Bishasiyah, but that's something else. So now the Gemara rejects this proof. Tirgamar of Sheishes. The Ovid Kochovim Hama'ara, the Osimi Kocho, Yomi Mikoi, Ovid Kochoma'ara. If indeed it's the idol worshippers pouring the wine, and the reason why it's asur is because of Kocho, is Afilu Gava de Chavisa Namimit. So what about the wine that's inside the barrel? That should also be prohibited, right? Because any wine inside the barrel was moved by the force of the idol worship. And yet the Brisa prohibits only the wine that flowed out of the barrel. And the Gemara answers, the whole institution of the Isur of Yain Nesach. In the case of Kolcho, that's all D'Rabbanan. Sahudin ofik lebroi goes to Rabbanan, Hudin legaboy lo goes to Rabbanan. D'Rabbanan only made this decree with regard to that which was propelled outside the barrel, but that which, the wine that remains inside the barrel, the Rabban never made that decree. Sovyota are Jewish wine sellers. When you measure out wine for the idol worshippers in their vessels, and their vessels contain a residue of yain nesach, katvik tufi, make sure to pour it out in short little spurts. Inami naftze nefutze, or fling the wine into their vessels from afar. So there's never a nitzog, which is an uninterrupted stream that connects the wine remaining in your vessel to the nesach wine in the idol worshipper's vessel. Wait just 1 second. So you're measuring the wine for the idol worshippers into their vessels, and make sure there's never an uninterrupted stream connecting the wine remaining in your vessel. So it's a Jewish vessel that is being poured into the vessel of the idol worship. And therefore, if you do it in one flow, so we're holding now that nitzok is a chibur. I guess there was people who were professional wine pourers. When you pour wine from one kli to another karev, say, don't let any guy approach you to help you. Dilma tolisu, perhaps you'll get tired at some point. And for a momentary time period, then you'll place the weight of the barrel entirely on the idol worship. So the wine will be propelled by the idol worshipper's force alone, and it will become prohibited. Who gava the asik chamra begushta ubas kishusa? A certain man siphoned out wine with a tube, like a straw, and a secondary tube. That is, he made a diagonal cut on 2 hollow reeds and then joined them together at right angles to form an inverted V. He placed one end all the way into a barrel containing wine, sucked at the other end into the wine at the other end until the wine began to flow through the tube. He then removed the tube from his mouth, placed it into an empty barrel, and left undisturbed. The flow caused by his suction will continue until all the wine would siphon from the first barrel into the second barrel. And that's called, in the Lashon HaShas, Bas Gishta. Okay, fine. So far, so good. There's no goy involved. But now, also, the idol worshiper came and he placed his hand at the end of the tube. The wine is flowing out from the end of the tube because he started sucking and it created a certain flow. And now the idol worshiper comes and he placed his hand at the end of the tube. Apparently, he's trying to stop up the wine. Is Asri Rava Lekuli Chama, Rava prohibited all the wine, even the wine that was still in the first barrel. Okay, this. B'mai. How did the wine in the barrel become prohibited? B'nitzok, shamet minon nitzok chibur. Do we derive the conclusion that according to you, nitzok is a chibur? Right, there's a stream that connects it to the wine that was touched by the idol worshiper. And Rava responds, Shani hosam de kuli chamra agishta ubas gishta gorir. Here it's different because all the wine is automatically drawn through the tube and the secondary tube. So since the wine flows by itself through the tubes, it is as though the tube is an extension of the barrel itself, and an idol worshiper who touches wine at the mouth of the tube is similar to an idol worshiper who touches the wine in the barrel itself. If you have drinking by both a Jew and an idol worshiper from the same kenishtakitu, that's permissible. So what is this kenishtakikin? So he says over here, it's a wide vessel which has 2 or 3 tubes protruding upwards from its sides and ending level with its height. I'm trying to picture it. I don't have a picture of it. When the vessel is filled with wine, the tubes fill up with wine, allowing a number of people to drink simultaneously. The Jew stops drinking first. If the idol is low, then it's not permitted. Okay, then, so this is where we'll stop, and I'll wish you a Shabbat Shalom and a